best to start off with a quote, I think, from Joel himself in the game. He says, "They made a sequel, wasn't as good." And I think that's enough for today. So if you've enjoyed this one, give us a like, subscribe. Before you go, I may as well carry on as I'm here. But I just felt that quote sums it up massively well. It's right there in the game as a complete joke, and yeah, it sums it up perfectly why this game was not as good as the first one. And there are so many reasons I want to try and go through how I feel, what I think they were doing with it. Is this game still a good game? Is it a masterpiece? And we just don't see it like that. Is it a complete shit show? Is it just average? What is it? So, part 1 of The Last of Us is out, 2013. It comes out, one of the games of the year in that year, one of the games of the generation on the PS3 genre. It's one of the best stories ever told in a video game. It changes the way video games are made coming forwards. It takes Naughty Dog up yet another level on their power, and they can continue to grow. And then as soon as The Last of Us Part 2 is announced, pressure is on them immediately. So what I would say is, if you go back before the game is even announced, is where I'm going to go back to. So the game is announced at E3. It's just a basic trailer of Ellie playing the guitar. She just not abandoned. She just sat isolated in her house. You see all the scratches down her back that we see in the game. Just playing a guitar. It's just the song, and then at the end, like a ghostly Joel figure walks in, and people start to question whether he's even going to be in the game or if he's alive in the game. Obviously, he is alive, but he's not after a few hours. Whether that was foreshadowing that, I don't know. But that's the basic trailer. The next trailer is where things started to get a bit rusty in terms of the community, and where the community took a turn on it where they really had no right to, and they shouldn't have. And it was literally just the party scene from the game. And you have the kiss scene. Basically, you have the dance, the kiss, and then as soon as they kiss, it drops into the action sequence in the big car park. I think they really show off all the new mechanics, and that's not important right now. We'll come back to that. Anyway, that all plays out, and then you go back to the kiss scene. They split apart. They talk, and then it ends, as far as I know. And that video, purely because of the fact they based it onto girls kissing, had a ridiculous amount of dislikes. And okay, maybe that's not because of that, but it seems suspicious, and all the comments were about that, homophobic comments that had no right to be there. And from that point onwards, people questioned what was happening. Now, let's put this straight. For me, that means nothing. For people who are judging the game on that, that is like beyond a disgrace. And your opinion on that point, as far as I'm concerned, is invalid towards the rest of the game. Because if that's your problem, then you don't deserve to be on it. You don't deserve to have a right to talk about the game if that's really the thing. Oh, look at this. Look at this marketing. You know? Lesbian marketing. That's what it is now. Yeah? So what? It's there. You know from the first game that Ellie's interested in girls. So what's the difference now? You can expect that sort of thing to happen. Why does it off-put you? If it off-puts you, just get out. I've been dragging on this now for a while. My concern is, well, not necessarily concern actually. My question is to Naughty Dog is, if your character was straight and that was a guy there, would you still marketed your game around that kiss? Or have you deliberately marketed the game around the fact that it is a lesbian kiss? Now, like I said, it doesn't bother me. They put it there. I think love was a sort of powerful theme in this game, and it was even more powerful in the first game. But my question is, in Naughty Dog's eyes, did they only do it for that sole reason? That it was like a fulfill the community thing, show the full equality thing off? Is that why it was there? Or was it there just because you wanted to show off that Ellie was dating? You know? But that's their question to answer, not mine, and mine to theorize, because I don't know anything about why it's there. That's just my question. And if it is the fact that they wanted to represent that, then I don't have a problem with it. But there's sort of pushing, video game developers sort of push nowadays equality in games, and sometimes they put it such to the forefront of the game and representing it as many ways as possible that the rest of the game's storyline and everything else suffers due to it. And I don't know. For me, it doesn't bother me. I enjoyed the trailer, and I was still hyped for the game. I don't know why I got confused there. And yeah. So all those people are already angry. That's never a good start. But the reasoning behind it at this point is a disgrace, and there should be no need for anger at that point. That's like the prequel part 1. Prequel part 2, much worse. About a month before the game gets released, there's a problem at Naughty Dog itself. Some employee releases the entire storyline out to the general public. It's just free online. I kept away from it. I didn't want the game spoiled for me, but a lot of people dug straight into it, had a look at the story, weren't happy with the way it played out, the character designs, all that sort of thing. I can't comment too much because I haven't actually seen the leaks because I never wanted to, and it seems a bit pointless now the game is out to go look for leaks, so I can't comment too much on that. But from what people are saying, it's just like it's a disgrace. The story's crap. It's a mess. They've ruined it. The Last of Us is ruined. It's in flames. Naughty Dog have ruined it. You know, all that sort of thing. So I just kept away from it. But you know, that sort of attention around a game with so much hype is always going to cause huge damage to it. Even if it was a perfect storyline, the whole thing getting leaked, it's ruining. And that employee, I mean, no matter what experience they had, I feel like that's just the consequences of releasing something like that are absolutely ridiculous. And you know, they never recovered from that. Naughty Dog never recovered from that moment. That one employee had the power to just release the entire plot, visuals, designs, all of that. That should never really happen before in the industry, that something like that would get played out like that. So from that point onwards, they were always going to be in a complete mess. And then obviously we'll get to the game itself, and I'll actually dig into the game. Now I've played it, I've seen it, I've had a moment to think about what I think about it, because some of my live reactions and thoughts aren't as clear as now I've, you know, thought about it. I've watched a few other reviews and seen what they say and how they interpret it, and I've kind of put together some things in my brain and my mind how I see the game now, and let's try and break it down as much as I can. So yeah, that's my extended intro. Here we go. I'm going to start with the gameplay and the visuals and all that stuff. Story in a lot of games is irrelevant. In this game, it is the biggest element of the game to almost everyone, and the game could be the most perfect gameplay experience ever. If the story's bad, people are going to hate on it, and that's exactly what's happened. So let's just start with the gameplay, because it's a much shorter section for me. It takes the system from The Last of Us 1 and it improves on it, not by a massive amount, but enough to make it much cleaner. There's a few more items you can have. It's a bit more of a cleaning, crafting system, upgrade system, and all that jazz. The areas are a lot bigger. Sometimes to fantastic use, sometimes to too much use. There was one area I played through, I can't remember what episode it was just a huge area, like no real gaps in it, or like breaks in it. It was just a huge area with enemies just patrolling permanently, and it was horrendous to try and deal with, because enemies just came in from different sections all the time. There was no scripting at all to it, and I don't want the game to be scripted in the way its AI works, and it didn't do that much, but it was a bit ridiculous. Like one time the enemies walk in on one side of the map, and the next time I played, because I screwed it up and had to restart, I think, they came in from like a completely different building on the other side. Which, okay, if you're playing it through once, that's fine, but if you're playing it through a second time and you get used to it, oh, they're not here this time, these enemies aren't here, and then you're like maybe 10 minutes further into the exploration, and then they appear somewhere completely different. For me, that I don't like that. For other people, they might think, well, that's absolutely fantastic. How clever is this working? You know, they've got so much innovation, and it is. But as someone just trying to clear the area, I found that incredibly frustrating. That there was no consistency with it. They'd almost tried too hard. Other areas were big areas with scripted enemies, and obviously, by scripted I mean they literally started in the same places if you screwed up. Their paths and stuff were quite expansive, which was nice, because you don't want them to walk around in fixed circles, you know, or walk down corridors up and down like PS1, PS2 style, because there's no perception of real life in that at all. There's no reliability. So yeah, I like the enemy placement. They've added a new infected in. Well, one regular enemy is the Shambler, that literally like roams around and then blows up, fills the air with like gas which drains your health. Sort of interesting, not game changing. Like, I was still far more nervous around stalkers, clickers and bloaters, so Shamblers, to be honest, were down the bottom of my hazards. Didn't add too much. There was obviously the big boss fight with the sort of, I don't even know how to describe it, just different infected, like, stuck together by the fungus into some massive boss thing, which was honestly terrifying. It was the only time in the game where I was genuinely a bit nervous, and I was a bit creeped out by it.
I can kill you.
Holy fuck. Get through, get through, get through. This is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Why am I in here? That works for me. Holy shit! But yeah, it was all good. In terms of items and stuff, they added in. They sort of replaced some things, like stun bombs were much more prominent in the order. They come in much earlier than they did in the first game, and there was still bombs, except from in the first game you could place bombs or throw them. In this game, there was a separate like mine thing. The bombs were literal mines. You had to lay them. You couldn't throw them, which kind of was a step back because I didn't really see too many opportunities to use a mine legitimately. Like, if you're running away from something, putting a mine down and hiding was never really useful. The only times I killed enemies with mines were by accident. Which was absolutely hilarious to watch, but not what I'd planned. Obviously, I'd expected them to come from the opposite direction towards me, not run around the back and then run back down from the other side towards the trap, you know. So it was quite hilarious how that worked out, but yeah, in terms of legitimately planning it, never useful. And explosive arrows as well. I never needed them. Like, my bow and arrow was sort of, it's a stealth weapon, you know, you use it to do things in stealth and keep it silent so the enemies aren't alerted. So shooting them with an explosive arrow to cause a massive explosion, I mean, it sounds cool in premise, but it was never something I ever opted for, rather than just shooting them with a, you know, a rifle or a shotgun. It was kind of there for flair purposes rather than any general use. If I wanted to clear out an area, I'd just throw a Molotov then, or a smoke bomb, rather than just shooting someone with an explosive arrow and blowing them up. It might have been useful in that scenario, now I think about it, on reflection, but I never really used it legitimately for any use. The only thing I did like was the silencer in this game. Silencer was fantastic, because it just allowed you to, you know, well, it's basically as simple as it gets, you know, you'd actually use the gun without alerting anyone. So it's just an extra level of stealth, and it was just so much more comfortable to use, because obviously it's so fast to use rather than drawing a bow or something. But yeah, stealth was good, enemy AI was good. I thought the improvements to the crafting were good, and the items were mainly positive. Abby also had a bouncing bomb, which was pretty nice. Not much to say on that. It was sort of like the other half of the bomb from The Last of Us. You know, you got the bouncing bomb and you got the mine, but this time they decided to split them into two different things. Whereas before, the fact that it was versatile and you can use it for either was much cleaner. But you know, it is what it is. Obviously, they've tried to extending the crafting system, give you more options rather than allowing you to use the same item for multiple things. You can argue both ways, but it is what it is. I'm not too fussed. And then, what else have we got? There's just walking sections sometimes, and they're dull. They're really dull. Happened in the first game, but in this game it felt more like you were trudging through empty fields or empty streets. And in the first game, a lot of houses had story and backstory to them, which was more interesting. Whereas this game, it was just like, oh, a house, and some alcohol, some rags, some explosive. There's no context to the building. It's just a building. Each town was irrelevant. There was no backstory that you could pick up, really. And if it was, I mostly skipped them. I wasn't interested in like the little notes and things. But yeah, that's about it. Finally then, visually, the game looks fantastic. Even though it's a generation off of current now, it still looks great. It's really, really nice visually. Some of the character models, some are like the general NPCs, especially in like the opening village, or wherever it was, Jackson, I think. Some of the people at the start, and I made jokes at the start like, oh, these character models are pretty average, to be honest, but, you know, do we really care? Past that, enemies, are you really looking at the enemies' faces like, oh, this guy's detailed, no, I'm just killing them. They're in the way, I'm going to kill them, and I'm not going to stand and study their corpse for ages, they're dead. As far as I know, that's about all I want to cover in terms of the gameplay. This is where it gets interesting. Start talking about the story and the themes behind it. The bit that most people will be interested in how we got here. I'm going to give myself a quick 2 minutes to think about it and I'll get ready. It's sort of one of those things where it's like, where do I start? Where do I start and where do I go with this? I don't know. Okay, so this game begins with the outro to the first game, as you'd assume, with the fact that Joel has told Ellie that there is no cure. He's ripped her out of there, killed the doctors, which is important. It doesn't seem that important at the time, but as the story goes on, it's incredibly important that that happened. And she's out of there, basically, and she's still alive, because if the cure had been taken, they would have killed her. Ellie, over time, in flashbacks throughout the game, you see that story with her and him, about her thoughts and her understanding growing that it was a lie, and she sort of feels in her life that the purpose of her life has been taken away from her now, because her life was sort of owed to the fact that it could save humanity. But Joel took that away from her, and she's obviously very pissed about it, up to the point that the game begins chronologically. Okay, so where the part 2 activity fits in. That's the sort of background you need for this game. The rest of The Last of Us Part 1, you know, I don't want to ruin that, because I know some people want to go play the first part again, so apart from the outro that actually means something for this game, I'm not going to ruin part 1. Like, if you want to go play part 1, it's a fantastic game. Go play that right now if you get a chance. But yeah, that's your knowledge for part 2, right there. And then you have 19-year-old Ellie in this game. That's your playable character. We knew that. That's where it takes off. The day before, she's been to a party. She's got with Dina. That's the romance that's stemmed here, and that's what we're going off for this game. Characters ask about that. There was a mini fight that Joel split them. Not split them, split other people from letting it happen, but not because it was of the nature of it, it was just because it wasn't the situation for a kiss. So that's what happened there. That's your further backstory, basically. Some stuff happens, there's some various trips out to clear the area, you know, it's an apocalypse, you gotta do that. Skip to the important bit now. We have a new character in the game. We have Abby and her people. And at the start, Abby's portrayed as the villain, as you'd expect. You play as her, yeah, sure. You don't know who she is, but you know quickly that they're trying to get down to the village, or the settlement that Joel and Ellie and all those are in, to get supplies out of that. And you start playing as her, you start seeing some of the new characters and what their motives are, and you start to not like Abby immediately. In the next scene, later, obviously Abby meets up with Joel and Tommy. You see Joel save her from the situation that she's running away from. Loads of infected. They escape. Abby says, let's go back to our place. We've got people, we've got supplies and stuff. You can rest there. They go back. And obviously that stems to Joel's death. This is the first major plot point, as you expect, that draws a lot of controversy, because if you're killing off a main character like that, that's a huge plot point, and it's got to be done in the right way. For me, it's done alright, to be honest. Up until that point in the story, including that, I thought this game was taking a decent story arc, and I was excited for what happens then. The only problem that comes up in a way is the fact that he sort of wanders into the house really openly when you're used to him being so conservative around other people and killing them on sight, you know, no chances. But this group of people he just wanders into, yeah, sure guys, what's happening? And before anything's happened, he's basically dead. He's not completely dead, but he's had it, basically, before Ellie even arrives there. He's had it. So people are saying, this is not Joel, he wouldn't have done that. Why is he gone like that? How has he ended up there? Because that wouldn't be him. From part 1, that's not him. It doesn't suit his story arc and his personality that he would be so foolish. And I didn't expect it to happen, sure. So I was in the same boat, but I'm just watching a damn game, for Christ's sake. I'm not making every decision for the characters. And obviously, if you're playing as Abby, that's deliberately designed from Naughty Dog to sort of say, oh no, maybe they're not bad people. And when you're playing as that scene where you're Abby with Joel and Tommy, you're not necessarily thinking Abby's a bad person at that point. You know, you have clans in different games, Walking Dead, you know, Days Gone, if anything like that. You have different clans, each to their own. You know, it's going to happen. You're going to have uncertainties and rivalries and sparks and fights and wars, because everyone's trying to survive at the end of the day. But you're not seeing Abby as like a bad person. You're seeing someone who's different. She's from a different place. And obviously, when survival is at stake, they're trying to help each other survive. So you start to think, okay, maybe these people are okay. Next moment, brutally killed John. With literally a driver, to be honest. I think it's a driver. From what I can remember, I haven't studied that golf club, but I just know it was a golf club, and she swung at him like she just brutally lost on the 18th hole of like the Masters or something. You can see the frustration in her eyes. One of the most ruthless death scenes I've ever seen. For no reason at that point, apparently, apart from he's a bad person. That's all we know. He's a bad person. Joel's a bad person. He deserved to get put on a tee and drilled down the fairway, and that's what he got. Obviously, you have the mourning of Joel, which I think is done well, and then you have the revenge story, and that's the main theme of this game. Revenge. Hate, revenge. Go to any depth to get revenge, no matter what it takes. How much blood is spilled, what it takes. And that is the entire basis of the remaining of the game, is blood and death. That's all there is to it. Literally all there is to it. And I could summarise this by not even talking anymore and saying, that's it. All the rest of the game is just killing. From Ellie's side, just killing everyone to get back to Abby. And the rest of Ellie's story arc, up to the point where the story splits, is literally, let's go to this building because someone might be there. Let's go to this building now because someone might be there as we work through the city. It's boring. It's really, really boring. The only thing that happens, pretty much in that point, is halfway through, Dina is found to be pregnant and she has to stop. That's it. And you know, it's sort of like, oh, it's Jessie's baby, but she's going to have to rest now and stay in this theatre place. I wish I could break down the story more. It's really not worth it. Literally, you're just exploring from place to place to place. Halfway through that story, Dina's found to be pregnant. Okay, that's it. So she's got to stay here now. We can't take a pregnant lady any further. Carry on a bit further. Jesse gets found back. You take him back. Tommy's out there. You take him back. You know, that's it. Along the point, you go to the hospital and kill Nora. With barely any reason to, apart from she's a bad person as well. Nora's a bad person because she's part of the people that knows Abby. She's a really bad person. We better murder her outrageously. It's not in Ellie's DNA to do that. I don't know why she does that. The fact is just hate and hate and hate and hate and hate and revenge. And blood. That's all it is. There's no thought to this game up to that point. It's just suddenly bitch basic video game design. You've come with an intro, a strong intro to the game. You've changed it up by Joel's death. You're seeking revenge, and then you're literally doing a point-to-point exploration game with some combat, and it sucked. Up to that point, there's some good action scenes, yeah, but are you really engaged in the story? For me, no, not at all. Not at all. You reach the aquarium. You kill off Owen and Mel, and again, they're bad people at this point. You know nothing about them other than the fact they're just bad people. Like, I'm just going to say that a billion times. They're bad people. You shoot them both with no resentment whatsoever. You kill them. She awkwardly drops the map because you know that would be the one thing that you wouldn't want to drop there, a map that would possibly allow others to track you. And you might want to check that you haven't dropped that on the floor, but you know, Ellie's kind of a bit out of it by this point. It just leaves it there. And the next thing you know is Abby picks up that map, finds them. Jesse's killed, right? Jesse's killed. Okay, characters are going to die in this game. He gets mourned for all of about 1.5 seconds before no one gives a damn anymore, which is just ridiculous. And as the player, I don't think anyone really would have mourned him. Not because he's a bad character, just the way it's portrayed. You don't have a chance to think about, oh my god, Jesse's gone. That was brutal. No, he's just progressed the story. Like, it's like just playing Skyrim or something. You just knock everyone out, kill them all. It's just like, forget it. Yeah, he's gone, she's gone. No one cares. And if the characters in the game don't care, then what's the player supposed to think of the game? It's not like there's a proper mourning sequence and you actually get to think about, oh my god, you know, he's gone. No, he's just killed, and they're like, well, bloody hell, on to the next then. We'll save the next person. And then it's changed to Abby. Abby comes into the story. Abby, the person you've been hating for the last 12 hours, trekking across the country hoping to smash her face in, she's now your playable character. And we learn immediately through a flashback sequence that she is the daughter of the surgeon who Joel kills. Okay, there's the motive there. Is it a good motive? Or like, not necessarily a good motive. Does it make sense now? Yes. It immediately makes sense why she would hunt Joel in that way. Or why not necessarily why she would hunt, but why she had an incredibly large thing against him. And that's where the revenge story starts. So it's her revenge story before it's Ellie's revenge story. Now that you understand that, what are we going to do? We're going to trek for about 4 hours across the country in search of Joel, right? That's what we're going to do. And then we're going to add in some new characters. We're going to meet Lev and we're going to meet Yara, who are Scars. And I haven't even spoken about them, but basically Scars are like this little cult from this island. I don't really know their motive, it's not really explained, apart from they hang people and they believe in this woman figure that appears on street art everywhere, and they're rivals, not rivals, they're just hated by the WLF, who's Abby's part of, and the WLF's motive is to just kill everyone on sight. If they're not with us, kill them. Don't even recruit them on most parts, just kill them on sight. No resent whatsoever, just kill them. So Abby, your villain, has not only killed the main character in the game, who you've bonded with for the 20 to 25 hour game that defined the generation, you now get to play as her, and all you get from it is that she's just been a brutal killer all along. A brutal killer all along, and the game just persuades you. But hey, maybe we're all alright in the end. She'll be a nice girl. We're just going to play this story out now so you can see it both sides. Do I like Abby in this game? Not really. Do I hate Abby? Also no, because the motive to obviously revenge her father's death, in a circumstance like this, is sort of warranted, you know? There's no real purpose to life and survival. And if you want revenge that badly, it's going to hurt. It's going to hit. And that's what you're going to go chasing. So she does go chasing it. And she gets it. And it's a brutal murder sequence. After that, it's sort of just a case of, where's Owen in this game? Who's Owen? Owen's just a bloke, to be honest, with some romantic interest of Abby's since they were teenagers. Other than that, he's a bloke. He's expecting to have a child with another woman, Mel, so, you know, by that point, Abby should probably back off, but later sequences in the game will show to you that she does not back off in one of the most grotesque and awkward sex encounters I've ever seen in a game or any media, with no sense to it. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's just one of the most weirdest things I've ever seen, and how it comes about. The fact that they're literally just talking about murder. And it's like, oh, that's a turn on, let's go for it. I guess no more comments on that from me. Just weird. But yeah, you meet these new two Scars, to rewind a huge detour I just took about all the other characters. These two Scars are in the game. You befriend them because they save her. Okay, they save Abby, and then all of a sudden she's indebted to them forever. And you think, Naughty Dog obviously have the idea is, hey look, she's forgiven these two characters here. She's a good person. We should now change our mind that Abby is a true human. She has emotion. She has empathy. She's a good person. Apart from no one's going to do that. Apart from me for a little bit, where I'm like, yeah, it's not that bad. Because you can see it from two ways. She's an evil person, or she's a regular person. Well, she's evil because the stuff she does is literally evil if you took it at face value in terms of like the world as we know it, or she's a normal person because that's reality for someone living in the middle of an apocalypse. So you can see it either way. Does that make her a very likable character? No. Even someone who was quite forgiving on her, she was still a very average character at best. And I was like, oh yes, Abby, I love Abby in this game. It's like, Abby's maybe okay, you know? That happens. Obviously, Yara's arm is cut off, and then you end up trying to rescue her, and they go back for her. You sort of bond with these two characters. They eventually get her back to the aquarium. You go looking across the bloody hospital. Another escort mission, or sort of errand to save a character. You know, it's just another bitch basic. Let's go do this, bring her back. Let's go get this equipment, bring it back for her. She's better now, woohoo! Like, it's just very scripted in that way. And then you have an awful, awful story arc with Lev. Lev as a character is a great character. The story arc he forms with the situation with his mother is awful. And it's disturbing in a way. So effectively, raises a girl, born a girl, raises a girl. His future would have been to marry one of the elders. He decides he doesn't want to do that. He wants to live as a boy and become a soldier, basically, so he shaves his head. That happens. That's fine. Nothing so far is wrong. That's a character's backstory, and it works as a character's backstory in my eyes. His mother is not happy with his decision and would threaten to kill him, basically, for the decision he's made. Okay, still a little bit. It's possible. It's not a nice thing to think about, but it's possible. Except Lev then decides to go back to his mother to save her. She then attempts to kill him, and he kills her out of revenge. And you have now a child killing their own mother out of self-defense because he went back there. And if it was that bad, I'm sorry, kid. You should have just stayed the hell out of there. Because you won't go back to anyone, no matter who they are, after that, if your life would be at risk near them. There's no sort of saving a situation like that. So the fact that he treks all the way back there to almost have his life taken, and then have to break himself by killing his own mother, is a ridiculously twisted storyline which had no place in this game. No matter all the things that happened in this game, that is truly awful and should never have happened. Like the situation with him shaving his head, even as a boy, fine. The fact that she's not up to that, it's not ideal. It's definitely not what you'd want to see, but if it happens, it happens. Going back, no. You've taken it too far now. You've corrupted this story like hell. Not only that, the WLF are now attacking this island that Abby's been working with and killing Scars for an entire of her career in the WLF. She's there now trying to get these two off the island, and she's questioning why the hell these WLF soldiers would attack the island in the first place. It's the most hypocritical and stupid oversight I've ever seen. Like, if she hadn't met these two, she would have been part of that team wrecking this island. Alright? But she's befriended two Scars out of, I don't know how many there are, or Seraphites, if you want to call them that. But she's now the absolute gem, and the perfect eye of the world now, and she cannot believe that this is going on, and she's disgusted by the WLF. Perfect story writing. Perfect story writing on Abby's side. Can't question it at all. Why the hell has that oversight been passed? She completely understands what is happening. Just spent the first flipping 5 years doing it. Nope, two characters she gets on with. She feels like she owes their lives to them. Now she owes her life to the entire population, apparently. Anyway, they get off the island. Yara dies in the process, I should add. She's mourned a little bit, and it was one of the only characters' deaths other than Joel that I was genuinely upset about. Well, not fully upset, but I actually oh god damn, I didn't want to lose her, because she was a decent character, where some of the other characters were so paper thin, and we'll come back to that in a second. It's like, well, another brick in the wall sort of thing with the characters in this game, which was a major problem for me, but like I said, we'll get back to that. She's mourned in the process, obviously, by Lev, who's now just lost his mother and his sister in the process, the space of about 20 minutes, which is going to be tough for anyone to ever take in their life, no matter a 13-year-old who's already been through enough as it is. But he gets over it. Well, not over it, but he gets to a point where he can bring himself to escape and try and carry on with his life. The stories then match together, where you arrive back to the aquarium. Owen and Mel are dead, and like I said, the map is lying there because Ellie did not think to check to pick that up. It's a massive, deliberate thing. It's just one of those things that in reality you're like, I can't believe that would happen. because she's got to get back. Ellie's got to get back, for Christ's sake. She would think, oh, let me just check the map. Oh, I don't have it, you know. She's trekked across the whole country to get here. Which seems to happen perfectly normally, by the way. They're trekking across the whole country with no tiredness or anything. They're a little bit fatigued, yeah, but you know, when you travel like 200 miles across the country, you can expect a bit more than fatigue when you're walking on foot. So that's another oversight, but that's not something I want to go into or worth going into. Abby tracks the aquarium with Lev. You then drop in, hold Tommy at gunpoint, and Jesse's headshot, and then you have the showdown. Not the final showdown, but a showdown, which could have been a final showdown that wasn't, basically. It's like the trailer. And it's the scene where you have Abby tracking Ellie. And this is a situation where many people, I say many, I say 99% of people, in our position where they think they can kill Ellie as Abby. And no one wants to do that. Why are we playing as Abby here? Like, many people will try and get Abby killed in this situation just because they want to see that ending. You want to see Ellie brutally murder Abby, regardless of whether you're playing Abby or not. That's not allowed. You have to try and win the fight as it goes. And yeah, it's literally just a stealth mission, which is okay, but the situation between Abby and Ellie doesn't work for me because the whole time, no matter how well it's presented, I don't want to be playing as Abby there. Okay, I get playing as 12 hours if you want to do that, to try and persuade it. But a position where I could possibly kill Ellie now, I don't want that shit. I want to play as Ellie here, and I want to finish Abby off. You don't get to do that, you have to win as Abby. And you get to a point where you're beating the shit out of Ellie. Dina comes in, gets the shit beaten out of her, then gets held with a knife across the throat, and it's Lev who stops Abby from killing her. And if you didn't hate Abby enough by this point, Ellie screams, "Don't! She's pregnant!" and her response is, "Good," and she smiles, and she's ready to do it until Lev runs in and is the one to stop it. So corruption by this point is huge. Absolutely huge with the characters. I don't really know what to think, other than what the fuck is going on at this point. Ellie is in quite a state, and I was questioning if she's actually dead, or she was gonna like die while she was still on the floor, as well with Dina. And then we just cut to this barn, ranch place in the middle of nowhere, where you've seen Dina give birth to Jesse's child. Ellie's there, Dina's there, they're just chilling. All is good, you know. All is good. But why is all good, you know? You're questioning why Abby's still alive in Ellie's eyes because of revenge. But, you know, it's just come to that out of nothing. It's like Uncharted, where you have the final boss, and then you just in some haven. I'm not going to say any more than that because I'm not here to spoil other games. You know, the boss, haven. It's just like, there it is, there's a conclusion to the game. It's not the end of the game, though, because Tommy comes back. Somehow, because he got shot in the back of the head by Abby in the previous section. I'd given him up, and then he's here. He's doing fine. Not fine, but he's limping around. He looks like he's got one eye, so he's not fine, but still, when his head's shot in the back of the head, that's still a decent outcome for him. How that happens, I do not know. And he's saying, still mourning Joel's death, obviously, and he says, I can't go do this, so persuades Ellie as hard as he can that she finishes the job on Abby. And there's a bit of... I don't mind this scene, to be fair. I think it's a decent scene in the game, where like Dina's trying to stop her, but Ellie wants to go. And she's had flashbacks in that scene as well. She's like still got PTSD in the way the story, in the way everything went down, and she's not happy. She's not satisfied that Abby's still alive. So she eventually goes, right? Basically, Abby's captured. You play as Abby first. She's captured. She plays Ellie. She escapes capture and end up at this big base where Abby's been held. Basically, skip all over that. I'm not explaining all that. It's literally this area on the screen right now. That circular building. And Abby is basically stripped to a post, and Ellie finds her there. And Ellie rips her down, so basically saving her life by doing that. And they escape. And they walk down to 2 boats. Abby puts Lev in the boat, but Ellie says no, we're fighting. Abby's the one to say we're not fighting. So Abby has killed everyone in the process, and she doesn't want to do this right now. Ellie's come all this way. She wants to fight. We fight. It's grueling. It's very strong. It's very powerful. We fight. It's very 50-50, and eventually, in a position where Ellie has Abby pinned, the potential to dunk her underneath the ocean, well, the sea as it rolls in a potential right there to kill her, sorry. And she doesn't. It's like forgiveness based on something. And to be honest, the way the game had went, Ellie killing Abby would probably suited it better. It was that much blood and gore and unnecessary death and no care in the world about it that if she had dunked her, I think it would have made better sense. And you almost wanted it to happen just for the sake of saving the game, It was so dull all the way through. The story really had no power. It's just like, oh, so nothing's happened again. And she sort of just lets her go. She lets her go. And she rows away, and Ellie rows away. Ellie then returns to the ranch. Dina and the kid have gone. She's left to herself. We have one more cutscene with her and Joel, and basically what comes of it is it shows that she forgave him for his lie, and they recovered. And that's sort of the motive why she didn't kill Abby, I guess. And then she walks off by herself, and the game ends. And at that point you're thinking, thank God that's over. 30 hours it took me to beat that game. And that's what I'll be presented with. Give me a minute and then I'll try and talk about some themes. What's the theme of this game, you ask? It's hate. According to Neil Druckmann himself, it's hate. The first game was love, this game is hate. You see hate right the way through this game. You see a couple of moments of love, but you see so much hate and ruthless killing that takes Ellie as a character way beyond what you expect of her. She's a forgiving character, she's a loving character, she grows to learn about the world through the first game. The second game, she just seeks revenge at all costs. We don't see Ellie ruthlessly kill many characters in the first game out of context. We see her forgive them. In this game, there's none of that. She's a ruthless murderer. No doubt about it. Which is an interesting thing with Abby. Abby is exactly the same. She's the ruthless murderer, but she's the villain. Ellie is the hero, or if you want, the anti-hero. Abby is the villain. Apart from Abby's revenge story is one of the most disgusting things you should ever see. That sparks Ellie's revenge story back on her. So who's the real villain here? Is really Abby that much worse than Ellie? Or if this was a standalone game here, are we saying that we're only siding with Ellie because we know her? If this was just a brand new game where this story has happened, would we all side with Ellie? That's a question I asked myself. I preferred Ellie slightly more anyway in this game, but she wasn't a great character by all means. Like, her personality in the first game was so much better, so much more interesting. But in this, who knows? Who knows? For me, whatever. It doesn't work. The two sides of the game is my main problem. Playing as Ellie for so long, then switching to Abby in a attempt to persuade you Abby is a good character, when Abby is a very plain character who with just pure aggression. The NPCs, not the NPCs, that's completely the wrong word. The other characters around her are really dull. Apart from Lev. And maybe Yara. The other characters are so boring. And there's no structure to her side of the story apart from ridiculous movements. Ellie's is boring, Abby's is ridiculous. And then you reach a plot point that merges them together and we get a ridiculous end sequence when nothing is really solved, and it's sort of one of those perfect literature things where the story's written on this motive of revenge is bad, therefore these characters don't kill each other. Bit late for that. You know, the world's basically on fire around them at this point. Bit late for that. It's just, the game has no structure. It's like a classic video game. Point to point, point to point, point to point. Something happens, no one cares. Point to point, point to point, point to point. First game was point to point. Stories continuously developing. Every plot point that happens is normally very important. You feel empathy for every single character on their story in that game. This game, who gives a damn? Who gives a flying fuck who they are? You don't. Someone is excited for this game for so long. You don't give a damn about the new characters in this game. Even like the new main characters, like your Dinas, they're not that interesting. There's nothing really to Dina's personality to make a particularly exciting character in this game. Just Ellie's love interest. That's all she serves as. A strong woman, sure. Anything other than that to make her interesting? No. Not at all. Not at all. We see death, 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 death. Regret, forgiveness. Game over. Here's a good summary. I really don't know what else to say in this game. Like how I feel about it as a structured game. I don't. Mess, complete oversight, no structure, no cohesion, no point. Did no service to the original at all. Is it a horrendous story? You know, I feel like a lot of it's put on the fact that it's The Last of Us Part 2. It's one of the most hyped games ever. It had the potential to go down as one of the greatest games ever made if they nailed it, and they didn't nail it in the slightest. It was a complete, utter shambles. Still a 7 out of 10 though. Purely because the effort that went into it and how good it looks and how well it plays. And I feel like people are going to come on and say it's a 0. Awful. Storyline wise it is. And if that's the only purpose you're going to pick this game up, don't even bother with it. It's fun to play, but do not bother if that is what you're here for. Just read it. Get on with it. Get it out of the way. Move on to something else, because this is a disappointing game, to put it very, very mildly. Abby should never have had a playable section in my eyes. Double the size of Ellie's story in search of her, and it wouldn't have made any difference. It would not have made any difference if you decided to move those plot points across, or literally just show them. Show her side, Abby's side, as cutscenes, right? Or if you're forced to make Abby playable, let's put it like the start of the game where you just shift between the two characters. Let's not have one timeline and then an entire other timeline afterwards, because by the time you've got to Abby's timeline, you're like, oh. Like you get to a cliffhanger where Jesse's just been killed, Tommy could be killed, Ellie's on the brink of being killed, and then you have to wait 12 hours of gameplay minimum to get back to that point from Abby's perspective. That's awful game design. That's awful game design in my eyes. I know there's a cliffhanger. You know, that's worse than waiting like for the next episode of a TV series to find out what happens. You're forcing yourself to play through it. It's just, I don't get why they would decide to do that. And Abby's perspective adds nothing to the game. It makes no improvements to the game. Ellie's story is not great. Abby's is awful. Why you would put it there, any purpose, any upgrade, or anything they see in terms of adding game value or having Abby's storyline play completely separately and join back up again. Ridiculous. And to see both characters spared at the end of it, as if they're neutral characters, or the same characters. Like I said, Abby is not a character that people are going to perceive anywhere near as well as Ellie, just because of the fact that the whole first game was about Ellie and Joel. And if you're going to kill Joel like that, then you're not a hero in this game. and you're never going to be liked by the people, no matter what your motive is. Ellie's character in this game is also ruined, so she's not the most likable character by any stretch of the imagination by the end of this game. And the whole thing just leaves a sour taste in your eyes. In your eyes, yes, that's how it works. In your mouth. It's a strain on the eyes. But yeah, the storyline behind it in terms of the themes and everything is just, oh god. What a waste, boys and girls. What a waste of this project. And what they were going for, I don't know. And when they were looking at it, like, this makes perfect sense from a literature and media perspective of these themes. I don't know. I do not know. And I can't, I could go on for, I'm split because I'm sort of ended it and also could go on for hours more. But I think I've covered as much as I want to cover for now. I doubt there'll be a follow-up. There could be, if it was necessary, but there's unlikely. Well, there's probably stuff I've missed out, just because there's so much to say about this game. But yeah, I'm out of here. For an overall game, I guess a 7 out of 10. But for what The Last of Us Part 2 is, I'm gonna give it a 4. Disappointing, and all I can hope is that Naughty Dog bounce back from this with something more polished and more thought out and less disastrous before it even came out onto consoles. But yeah, I've lost my voice already, so I don't think I can carry on much longer. That's my opinion. People are going to believe it, people are going to argue it, it's whatever, it's an opinion, it's just the facts as well of the storyline and what I think about it. So yeah, if you've made it to the end when it's edited, I don't know how long it's going to be. If you made it to the end, cheers for watching this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Just message me. Anything. And let me just know what you thought of this as a review. Like, a lot of games, when I review them, it won't be so story based, so it will be talking about the different mechanics and stuff. This one is mostly story, so that's all it comes down to. But thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video.